Hey guys, welcome back to As a Man Thinketh on UNASA TV. So the federal government made a few fupas in Kansas with some of their federal property. And instead of fixing the problem, instead of making repairs to their situation, they're going to take or use eminent domain to take land from farmers and ranchers in Kansas in order to supply federal lands with more water rights. Seems like this water war is going on all over the United States these days. According to the executive director of the Kansas Natural Resource Coalition, this isn't just a water management issue, it's a full-blown federal overreach, an unlawful and physically reckless plan to take private property and repurpose public funds to correct a problem created by the federal government in and of themselves. So what happened is on April 18th, 2025, the NRCS released the Draft Environmental Impact Statement, DEIS, for Rattlesnake Creek Watershed Plan. This is a sweeping conservation initiative targeting farmers and ranchers across central Kansas. This is not a small scale thing. 33 counties in Kansas are going after this thing pretty hardcore. The proposal calls for the construction of a new augmented well field, and of course, the retirement of people's water rights, all to restore the water flow in Quivira National Wildlife Refuge. Now, the refuge does actually hold senior water rights in this situation over the farmers and the ranchers. But the refuge has made some massive mistakes in the past, which I'm about to get to, that have caused them to run out of water. So what did they do? They said, well, we're the senior water rights holder. We're gonna come in and we're gonna take your water rights because we don't have enough water. And if you don't wanna give us your water rights, then we're gonna use eminent domain in order to take them. Let me quote the report. If landowners do not voluntarily cooperate, eminent domain may be used to seize property. It's pretty straightforward, folks. Federal government wants these farmers and ranchers' land. This has always been kind of a voluntary conservation effort between farmers, ranchers, and the federal government. And in fact, throughout history, what you've seen is a lot of cooperation between farmers and ranchers and wanting to figure out ways to improve water flow into Quivira National Wildlife Refuge. In 2023 alone, the voluntary participation of ranchers and farmers increased water flow into Quivira Wildlife Refuge by 325,000 gallons. And that was enough at that time to kind of stabilize the system and keep coercion and lawsuits out of it. The actual voluntary participation of farmers and ranchers in this area goes back to 1994, when they reached an agreement to make conservation efforts. And a lot of these farmers and ranchers have been given incentives to make conservation efforts when it comes to water conservation in order to help with the wildlife refuge. So there's been a lot of stuff. Ranchers and farmers have already given a lot to the federal government on this. But let me explain to you, why exactly this is more of a federal government problem that they're putting on the farmers and ranchers and threatening to take their land over. The federal government is actually responsible for building the canals and the stream beds that redirect water into the wildlife refuge. But a lot of these canals and stream beds are cracked. They're not retaining water. There's a lot of water loss. There's not a lot of water retention. And so they're losing more water as they try and divert water into the wildlife refuge. Unlined canals, broken diversion gates, overgrown ditches that then slowly build up sediment, stop water flow, have all caused massive losses to stream flow into Quivira. Through seepage, through evaporation, all these are different factors that the federal government has put on themselves. This isn't coming from the farmers and ranchers. This is just pure infrastructure negligence. And now the federal government just wants to take their land altogether. According to KNRC President Bob Rain, the DEIS fails to address root causes and proposes to solve federal mismanagement by taking from private citizens. I mean, this is a fundamental violation of due process by the federal government. They have a job to do. They have more money in the world than anybody because they can just print it when they need it. They have a job to do, and they've failed at it. They've absolutely failed at it. They failed to keep up this water infrastructure, and yet what they're now saying to all these ranchers is personal. What they're saying is, you either give us more, you do more, or we're going to take your land. That's coercion. This, I think, is going to be a case that raises a lot of questions for a lot of us across the United States, especially going forward with all the needs that the federal government has for water, especially when developing their infrastructure plans with data centers and artificial intelligence. The fourth industrial revolution is here. They need that water for more than wildlife refuges. And so to look at this particular situation and say, hey, should the government be allowed to do this? Should they be allowed to step in here and just take people's land away from them if they fail in their own responsibilities? Shouldn't there have to be other mitigation processes that they go through first? Now, the comment period for this DEIS actually ended in June, but the Kansas Commission of Natural Resources is not going to give up on fighting this challenge. And like I said, this is something that we should be all paying attention to, regardless of where you are in the United States, as it is a federal case. And it's government coercion. It's making people give something up that provides for their livelihood with the threat of taking their property from them, taking their land from them. You either participate or you're out. But we don't have to fix a thing. We don't have to do anything on our end. Anyway, guys, stay tuned to UNASA TV for more stories like this, because I've got a lot of them for you, and they're important to pay attention to.